Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton. And again, I have another special guest that I've met through a connection that, believe it or not, the connection started with a One Jordan relationship. And now we're on a podcast episode together. Maren, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. I'm excited to be here to see where we go, to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for taking the time out. I know you're super busy with everything you have going on right now, and it was just so gracious. So yeah, I'd love to jump on. And the cool part was she was on before I was, which doesn't happen very often. Usually I have to get on here and I'm like, okay, I'm texting people and all that, but she was ready to go. I wouldn't expect anything less than that from someone who operates at such a high level like you do. I want to talk about women's basketball first. Obviously, you college player, coach, pro player. I'm curious what you feel the state of women's basketball is right now. I lived in Indiana for 25 plus years. Now I'm back in Florida. So I'm a little bit of a Caitlin Clark fan. I'm a basketball fan in general, my favorite sport by far. And I just want to get your take from someone who I guess I could call you an OG of women's basketball when it comes to the modern day atmosphere of that, right?
Sure. If you want to go strictly by years of service or age, absolutely. By impact, maybe not, but by how old I am and how many years I played, certainly in my time in the industry.
Yeah. How excited are you about what's going on right now with the WNBA? I mean, it's got to be. I mean, it's pretty wild, right?
Yeah, I did. Full confession, I did take a little bit of a nap this morning so that I could stay up and watch both games tonight. So I am a big fan. And I think, women's basketball is in a really unique spot right now. And being a former player, being a former coach, currently commentating games in the spaces that I am, I can see it from many angles. And from the fans' perspective, it couldn't be bigger. Like the Olympics, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Cardova, like all of them, right? Like it couldn't be more exciting to watch. And on the other side, being one of the people that pushes the envelope and tries to take that next step, there's a long way to go. There is a long way to go. And I don't say that to negate the steps that have been made or what the trailblazers, the pioneers of collegiate women's basketball, the WNBA and other pro leagues that have, not made it in the States have done, because all of those people are so very important. But being, kind of having an eye on both sides of the coin, so to speak, there's a lot of work still to be done, but I'm with you. I'm a huge fan. I want to watch. I want to promote. The Olympics was amazing. And I think women's basketball and the WNBA has opened the door for more interest in women's soccer, in women's volleyball, in, the US Open, different things. And the concept of all sports, all women's sports being elevated at the same time. That's what kind of gives me the goosebumps, right? Like you're so in the silo of your sport. And then it's like, oh, but no, this is happening for soccer. This is happening for volleyball. That's I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking of all of that.
Yeah. As a fan, a big fan of sports in general. I mean, so a little bit of history here. I have two daughters. One's 31, one's 25. And one of them was a very good athlete. The other one just wasn't interested in it. She's an entrepreneur, owns her own food truck, and is opening her own brick and mortar restaurant next week, first restaurant. So just two different kids. And then I have a 9-month-old son. But I have a wife and she has two sisters, and they were all athletes as well. Pretty high level athletes. And so I'm excited to see what has happened just in this last year. I mean, yeah, we have a long way to go, but man, if you can do this, what happened this last 12 months, 2 or 3 years in a row, we make up a lot of ground, right? I love that. Do you think the negative press on some of the stuff is just a requirement of growth? Because there's some there seems to be a lot of tension back and forth on the WNBA stuff to a certain extent. And I think it's normal. I love the confrontation. I love it when people talk instead of just nope, that's my opinion, end of story. I love the banter back and forth. You get that in men's sports all the time. You can't turn on a sports center without people arguing over Patrick Mahomes or whatever, right? So I love the banter there. But do you think that's just a necessary requirement in growth as a sport?
I think it's part of the trajectory. And what I mean by that is you brought up the point that banter, conversation, criticism is in men's sports all the time. And where men's sports are, it's commonplace, it's normal in terms of volume, in terms of number of times it happens on any, sports talk radio show or television show. With the amplification of the WNBA, of women's college basketball, that's really the only thing I can speak confidently on. Because it has grown in the media so much, I think the spotlight is on the criticism, the conversation, the banter, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is too much. This is bad. When some of it is warranted, perhaps, and some of it is just like, no, if we see the whole picture, the percentage, the part comes with the territory. But I think there's some societal stereotypes that we don't criticize women, or we can't say that about a female, or that, like, is that appropriate? And that's where the growth and kind of like the feeling out of where is that line, I think that's where the media is still kind of figuring it out.
Yeah. And again, at first I was like, oh, this we can't do this. We can't talk this way. And then more I started thinking about, I'm like, wait a minute. If we want to be pro and we want to be equals on this level, this is the conversations that are had all the time in men's sports. And I don't want to go too far into this, but just like a Cheryl Swoops comment, the stuff that she says, there's NBA veterans that say stuff like that all the time about rookies in the NBA. Like it's not, this isn't a shocker. Like, I mean, like the number of people that said, XYZ, this player, whatever, that's just normal stuff. And I think that we have to, if we want it to go to that level, if you want it to continue to grow, the equal part of it is the equal criticism, the equal physicality in the game. Like I'm watching some of the games this year and I'm like, has it always been that physical? You played in the league. Like, has it always been that physical? Like I'm watching some of the physicality. I'm like, man, this is some playground stuff sometimes. Like what?
I mean, a couple of thoughts there, like to your point of the Cheryl Swoops comment and, that happens in the NBA. But when that's the first time it's been at that volume in the WNBA, it's like, whoa, what? Like, that's where people kind of take a step back on all sides of the coin there. Mm-hmm. And to your point, like, it's not unique to women's basketball. It's not, this isn't the only sphere that this is happening in, but it's the loudest.
Yeah.
And the first, or maybe not the first, but it's early on and it's, not commonplace. So that kind of, ruffles the feathers, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But to your point, for the game to grow, for the sport to grow, like this is part of it. You don't get to just grow pretty. You and I as entrepreneurs, we don't just get to do all the fun stuff and we don't just get to make all the money. We don't just get to have positive conversations, right? Like there's growing pains that come with it. And in sport, it's all magnified. It's all on television. It's all on the internet. It's all on social media. Like that's the world that, there were people criticizing Michael Jordan, but there wasn't social media. So nobody knew that, only the barbershop knew that he was being criticized, not, everybody. So that comes with, in my opinion, I think you're kind of saying the same thing. It comes with the growth and it's not necessarily bad.
Yeah, it's just part of it. I mean, most people that aren't true fans don't know where Michael Jordan was picked out in the draft. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of that stuff. But yeah, when I first said, okay, I want to get on a podcast with you, that was the first couple of questions I had, just because I'm interested in somebody who's on the inside, who's been there, and to get some kind of opinions there. Cause my opinion has evolved over the last probably 8 weeks of that. Cause at first I was like, what? You can't do, that's just my natural instinct. Now, wait a minute. Okay. What's the reality of this? What's really happening here? What are people saying and what's, from there. So yeah, I get exactly what you're saying with that. So let's talk about where'd you grow up at? Where are you from, Maren?
I am from Bloomington, Minnesota. So okay. It's chilly there. It can get cold there. But yeah, that's where I grew up. My whole family's there. My parents still live there. So I try to get back as often as I can. I'm a Minnesota kid at heart.
So basketball wise, anybody else in your family play at a high level?
Yeah, I have a sister. And then we have an adopted non-legally adopted sister that also played basketball. So we were a basketball family. You know, the funny joke in the family is, so my dad's 6'5", you know, played growing up.
Mhm.
My mom's 5'7", you know, so she's like the shrimp of the family.
Yep.
And she didn't play sports growing up. And so the joke is she would go to University of Minnesota games with my dad, you know, when they were dating and early married. And all she knew was that the shot clock, or the clock at the end of the court had to go from 20 to 0 2 times, and then she could leave. Now, fast forward a few decades, and this woman is sending me stats as I'm watching a game. She's sending me the stats of, you know, so and so. She's missed 3 shots in a row now, or I mean, who knows the stats that my mom sends, but to see her like totally dive in, and obviously like as kids, she was immensely supportive of all that we did, but being able to kind of take her on and my dad, but take them on this adventure with me, you know, I'm sure you've seen it with your own children, both your daughters and now, you know, your son, of like, I know nothing about X, Y, or Z, and now I am, you know, all in. So, we are definitely a basketball family. We're definitely a sports family. My boyfriend here in Philadelphia, you know, is also into the pro sports side of things. So yeah, we eat and breathe and sleep sports.
Okay. How was the recruitment out of high school to go play college basketball for you? What did that look like back then?
Extremely different than it does now. There was no NIL money. Nobody was
of course. Me. Yeah. Cause we're going to talk about that next, but yeah.
Nobody was giving me any of that. You know, my experience, my journey was pretty commonplace. I played summer basketball. It's called AAU. You know, I played, I did national things. I did regional things. I got paper letters in the mail. Coaches called my landline phone at my parents' house and built relationships. You know, at the end of the day, I chose Penn State. I was very intrigued and felt very empowered by our head coach, Renee Portland. I tore my ACL my junior year of high school, and now spring of my junior year. Now looking back, like that is as a college basketball coach, like I couldn't have torn my ACL at a worse time in terms of like a recruiting process. Like that was not ideal. But for her to, you know, sit at the table and say, you didn't hurt your heart, you didn't hurt your mind, you'll recover. Like we still want you, really meant a lot to me. You know, that faith and that commitment to my work ethic and who I had been and who she saw me to be, led me to Penn State. And I had a fantastic experience athletically, academically, socially. You know, I would do it all over again. I live in Philadelphia. I have season football tickets to Penn State. I commentate some of their games. I'm still very involved with Penn State and the women's basketball program because of the experience I had. And honestly, that's what I wish for, you know, the student athletes that I recruited as a college coach. But, you know, I obviously have friends that played college sports, and to hear that they didn't have such a positive experience or can't speak as excitedly as I can, you know, kind of breaks my heart because I had a fantastic college experience.
Yeah, one of my I forgot you played at Penn State. One of my good friends, a kid I grew up with, played at Penn State. He's 2 years younger than me, so he'd be 50. Donovan Williams was his name. He was a shooting guard at Penn State. Probably left right about the time you came to school there. And grew up here in Orlando.
As my freshman year of college, you're like, you can't see outside of your own dorm room, so you don't know anybody else.
Exactly. I'm like, I just need to get to class on time, and not get lost out here. So I'm with you on that. Let's step over to NIL real quick. I'll give you my opinion from a fan, and then we can get yours from somebody who's been in that space. I think it's a necessary requirement. I think it's good. I think they should be doing it. I think there should be a cap on it and how much it is. I think that you should only get part of it now, and part of it should go into some type of retirement fund or annuity or something else. And I think that once you accept NIL money, you're at that school and you shouldn't be able to transfer. That's just how I feel about it, because I feel like that's a contract of some kind, binding of whatever, or, you know, that's my opinion from where I'm at. I just saw so many people in football over the last few years, NIL hop, and these kids are getting $1 million, $1.5 million, and some of them never took a snap, right? Like, so that's my take on it. I'm always curious. Like, I mean, I talk with LaShawn Merritt. He's a friend of mine. He's a 3-time Olympic gold medalist in the 400 meter. We talked about NIL in that because he left college at 18 to go pro to run track, right? He got $2 million from Nike when he was 18 years old, and things would have been different if there had been NIL when LaShawn was in school. So I'm just curious what your opinion is on that and how it looks.
Yeah. College athletics is changing by the day. I mean, shoot, we woke up, what was it, maybe Monday morning or Sunday, and the Pac-12 had added a member? I mean, like, happened overnight, literally. So every single day is a little bit different. And for, my personal opinion, I couldn't agree with you more, Chris. It has to happen. Schools are making millions and millions of dollars. Why can't the athletes get a portion of that? It's their back, it's their sweat. Yes, coaches are involved, administrators are involved in providing the opportunity, but college athletics is the front door to so many schools, and individual athletes carry that weight much more so than other students on campus. And so I do 100% agree with it. I think the notion that there needs to be a balance, and that doesn't mean 50-50, that doesn't mean perfectly parallel, but it seems to be quite out of balance right now, meaning where is power's the wrong word. That's most certainly the wrong word, but I don't know what the right word is. Right now, to your point, student athletes can kind of run the asylum, right? Like they can hop, they can jump, they can demand, and we're so fresh into this. We haven't necessarily seen the super negative repercussions that are going to happen. There is going to be a student athlete who makes a poor decision on a grand stage, and then that NIL money, is brought into the conversation. Your point about not being able to hop once you have, a NIL deal, that's a contract. You're staying put there. Is that a 1-year contract? Is that a 2-year contract? Those are things that,
Sure.
above my pay grade to make the decision on. But when I mention like the balance or the lack of balance right now, like that's kind of where it is, that there has to be some stronger framework, a stronger framework around the concept and around the idea, because it is a good thing. But just like any good thing, too many cookies is not a good thing, right? But having a cookie at dinner is not a bad thing, but eating a whole row of Oreos is not good, right? So
no, but I love Oreos though, Maren. I will smash some Oreos in the wrong time.
Super easy. It's super easy.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, yes, it needed to happen. Absolutely. Being on the inside of it, we had a young lady at Penn State who was a phenomenal artist, and came from a financial situation that wasn't the top echelon, that wasn't the upper echelon. Could her ability to make some money because she was a phenomenal artist could have been career changing in her 4 years in college?
Yeah.
But she couldn't do that because she was the player at the school. However, she's sitting next to some kid in a class who on a Friday night goes down to the bar, uses his talent of being a DJ or performing musically. He's making his rent. Yeah. He's making extra cash if he's on an academic scholarship. Mm-hmm. So like those are the situations that's 100% needed. Yeah. Does anybody really need $1 million at age 18? I would argue that probably not. Now, are there situations where money would help every family? 100%. 100%. But where is the framework that makes this more manageable, whether it's institutions, departments, programs, put their arms around it? I mean, the college athletics is turning into a semi-pro or a pro team. And now I'm, having conversations with different coaches that I know and that I work with. They're like, hey, we're going to hire a GM next year.
That's where we're going to go next, Maren. That's where we're going next.
I've got college coaching friends who have been in Nick Sirianni's office here with the Eagles, who have been in Andy Reid's office down at Kansas City taught, like, how do you do this? What do I need to be thinking of? This is where college athletics is going. Help me out. I was on another Zoom with the Penn State head coach, the current head coach, and she was like, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z to prepare myself, and this group right here, you're going to help me. So it's a big shift, and the job description of what a head coach in college athletics is, and even women's soccer, like, maybe not to the degree, but the skill sets needed is way different today than it was 3 years ago. And it's going to be different at this time next year.
Yeah, I think it's almost becoming more of a, it's not a student athlete anymore. It's an employed athlete. And I think where you have to draw the line, though, as we talk this through, is the difference between being an NIL athlete and being a pro is you can't get cut and lose your money in college. Like, they're not going to cut you and take your money from you in college, unless moral turpitude, those types of things. But like, as a whole, you can get paid all this money. Like Arch Manning, he got paid almost $2 million last year, didn't take one snap, right? Now, is he worth $2 million? Probably. He's probably going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate next year or whatever. But there's got to be accountability, like we talked about along the way. And I think that's why Nick Saban got out of coaching, because he didn't want to deal with that piece. That's why he was a horrible pro coach. So this is becoming a pro game, so maybe it wouldn't work for him anymore. I'm a huge Nick Saban fan, even though I'm a Gator. I'm still a huge Nick Saban fan just because of who he is, right? But
the same thing can be probably said for Jay Wright.
Yeah.
The Villanova men's coach, and so many others. Like when I see the lists of the ADs that are getting out, of the men's and women's basketball and football coaches who are getting out of the business, it's because it's changing. And part of me really commends them. Part of me really commends the Jay Wrights, the Nick Sabans, who are saying, this environment does not jive with who I am, does not jive with my leadership style. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong, but this isn't the environment for me. And those people, I believe, need a high five, need a pat on the back for being self-aware enough to realize this isn't their skill set anymore. This isn't their strength. Because you and I have both seen people who are in whatever industry it is because they don't have another option, because they don't know how to operate, because they are lacking the confidence to say, stop, I want to make a pivot. I need to make a pivot. And then when you look, let's just take Nick Saban as the example. If this isn't his sweet spot, if this isn't where he authentically is going to be at his best, what is the experience that he's giving his student athletes?
Not what he would normally give.
Not what he would normally want. And for him, as the example, to take a step out and just say, this is not for me, I think is a strength. I think it gets a lot of head turning and oh my gosh, they can, they can't hang, they can't do it, they can't pivot. It's a bad, NIL is bad. The college athletic landscape is bad. We're losing coaches because it's bad. I don't know that that's true.
I don't know. I don't think it is. And I think that the difference is he didn't want to do it. He doesn't have to do it. You know what I mean? Nick doesn't have to do it. He's going to go down as, in my opinion, the best college football coach ever until the next best one comes along, which NIL, it may not happen the way things are structured. Who knows? But he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to bend who he was as a person and change things. And he wanted to be held in that spot. Look, when I look at the general manager positions that are coming about, I'm like, man, that is an interesting position. But I think that's a requirement as you move forward. Let them be the buffer and the space for all the NIL stuff that's going on in the coach, right? And I believe that's the reason why. Is that how you feel? The same reason they're bringing him in?
Well, the role of the head coach is now much more fundraising. That's what these coaches are tasked to do. And at the end of the day, we all have, our capacity is our capacity, and we can work and stretch and grow our capacity. But at the end of the day, there's still a limit to it. So adding that component to their plate, the managing of the NIL, the GM, responsibilities, is one thing that they can take off their plate. They can't take everything off their plate. And most college coaches that I know are in it for the relationships. They want the impact on the student athletes because they had such a wonderful, college experience in some capacity.
Yep.
So being able to shift their attention and their focus back to those relationships while getting some of this NIL, some of this general manager, some of this roster building off their plate, is part of the pivot or the turn, so to speak.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out and what that looks like. Let's be
honest. Like whatever happens in the next 2 or 3 years is all going to be a test.
Oh yeah.
We're going to have to wait a solid 5 years to be like, now we have settled into the role, the responsibilities, what this looks like, what this feels like. How big is a staff? How big is the staff of a Power 4 school? How big is the staff of a mid-major school? Like, what do these things look like? So I think it's going to be hard to get any actual concrete, this is working, for 4 or 5 years. Even though everyone's going to try, as they should, because we got to, the more people that are trying this and failing, the better off the industry is.
Agreed. We got to test it, right? We got to test it and push through and get from there. Okay, so let's get on to some other cool stuff here. We've broken down basketball. We talked NIL. We talked general manager, which I think you'd make a great general manager for Penn State basketball. Just putting that out there. If that's what you're looking for, I got you back there. Or you can come down to Sunshine State. Florida's got some pretty good athletics as well, and less snow. But so let's talk what you're doing now. Like we met through the Coach to Coaches program through Ben Newman, who has been a catalyst in me changing my life over the last 2 years. I walked away from a very cushy corner office executive job where I could have frankly just shown up and worked kind of what I did for the rest of my life, and realized that that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to have more impact on people's lives. And that's how I figured out a way to get into Ben's circle. And then I've met so many great people along the way. You're one of those people. So let's talk about, I want to know how you got in, how you met up with Ben, how'd that even happen, and then where you're headed to now.
Yeah. So I was a college coach for 15 years. And when I got out, I was one of those coaches that said, I don't think the way that the landscape is moving, I don't think that jives with me. And also, I had a really hard last year of coaching. I needed support. I needed help. Hence, Elevating Leaders, my company, was born. Coaching, consulting, and a search firm that supports people outside of athletics, but a whole lot of women's basketball coaches. Because the runway's short, the stress is high, they need as much help and support as they can get. And so that's where Elevating Leaders lives and operates. Like I said, I do some public speaking and I'm operating outside of the athletic sphere as well. But my heart and my sweet spot is supporting and helping college coaches. And so whether that's a rookie head coach program, a program analysis at the end of the year, we are currently in a RCA, Recruiting Coordinators Academy, which is a monthly program similar to where you and I met in Uncommon Live, providing programming and support and speakers that coincide with the recruiting calendar for those individuals and any program that have the responsibilities of oversight, management, execution of the recruiting process for their program. So providing that support, because again, a lot of, 5 years ago, the recruiting coordinator in any program was getting a lot of mentorship from their head coach. Well, now their head coach is out doing all these other things, and yet they still need the mentorship, the challenge, the help. And that's where we come in. So that's the down and dirty. That's the nitty gritty. But it's a pretty cool story how I met Ben. He was, as you know, the performance coach for North Dakota State football, Bison football, when they won a handful of national championships. And I went into our athletic director. I was the head coach of the women's basketball team at North Dakota State at the same time. And I went into our athletic director and I was like, hey, a couple of our players have asked about some mental performance support. Like, where can I go? What do you guys, where can you guys connect me? And our deputy AD was like, well, this guy, Ben Newman, works with our football program. He'll be here in 2 days. Let me call him and ask if, he can meet with you guys. So Ben came and spoke to our team that Friday. gave us his story and empowered our players. And I was just really struck by that. It just really sat with me. And, fast forward a few years and I joined Uncommon Live, we're in this coaching group together. And then he said this a couple days ago, so or a couple calls ago, so I don't think I'm giving out any hidden information, but he and I actually sat right next to each other two Super Bowls ago. We both have connections with the Eagles. And so we were literally sitting shoulder to shoulder at a Super Bowl. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
The Eagles were not doing so well at halftime. And he gave me one of his legacy medals. He was like, hey, it's been in my pocket the first half. It hasn't worked. Let me give it to you. It didn't work for us at the end of the game. But so that's how I met Ben, and being in his circle and in his circle of influence, he always says it, and you and I both agree with, we need mentorship. We need coaching. We need places that we are pushed. And that's 100% what he does for me every time I jump on a call, every video that I watch, things of that nature, which has really impacted how I show up for the people that I serve. Does it look different? Absolutely. Like, we are two different people working with semi-different audiences, but that same level of impact and desire to serve, I find I get a lot of value from our calls, from meeting folks like you that, we come from, he likes to call it the uncommon mindset. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not true, but from the same seed, so to speak,
Yep.
from the same desire to make the impact and to show up even when it's hard, really to me is quite valuable.
Yeah, Ben he's got that ability to really change your mindset very quickly. And I'll share with the people who may not know how I met Ben, but I sent Ben one Jordan shoe, and I sent it to him, and he responded within a couple days of getting it with a text message, and he said, "You've got my attention, Welton. I'll do a call with you December 26th at 11 a.m." Well, I usually don't work like the last 2 weeks of December, just FYI. But I did work that day. And we got on the call, and that was it. And he has brought me into his circle. He's introduced me to the amazing people. I've met people like yourself, but just the countless number of spots and opportunities that I've been able to get into. And I'm a speaker for Ben's company now too. And just all these just different things. But I think the most important thing is the relationships I've met outside of Ben. Like, Ben is Ben. He's not, I could call Ben right now and tell him you and I are on a call. We need to talk to him. He would answer the call like that. But that's for a select few people, right? Like, he's not going to do that for everybody. Right. But the relationships I built now inside the group, I feel like I could call you. You could call me anytime. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's several, Mark Pankratz. I don't know if you know Mark or not, but he coached at Tennessee. He played at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he was on staff at Tennessee with Bruce Pearl. So
yes,
Bruce,
I listened to their Burn episode. Yep. I mean, so I don't know him, but yes, I know the story.
Yeah, so I've become really good friends with him, and just from conversations, and then now we're all unfortunately, I won't get to see you, but we're going to Puerto Rico in a couple of weeks. And I look forward to spending time with those people and elevate and take it to that next level. So how do you feel that the conversations in Uncommon Live and Coach to Coaches and those types of things have better prepared you for the journey you're on with working with college coaches and what you're trying to build?
Yeah, I think when I think about it from like the take a step back, like, I come from college athletics. I come from being on a team. I truly believe that life is meant to be lived on a team, whether that's a, domestic partnership team, whether that's a sports team, your block, your neighborhood is a team in some capacity. Maybe it's a church or a religious group. You're a team. Like, I firmly believe life is meant to be lived on a team. Well, then you find yourself in this entrepreneurial world where you're the janitor, the IT person, the marketing person, the copywriter, the bill payer, and the prospector. Like, you wear a lot of hats. I'm sure you agree with that.
Yes,
and so where is your team? Yes, some of those team members Patrick, my parents, my neighbors, my girlfriends that I played sports with, they're like, awesome, girl, keep killing it. You're doing a great job. And I'm like, you have no idea what I'm doing. But you step into a space like Uncommon Live, you step into Coach to Coaches, and you're like, okay, these are my people. We're talking to different audiences. We have different challenges, but yet the root of where are we? What are our challenges? Where are we going? I find that that's a team. And that's where it's like, hey, Chris, your marketing idea with your One Jordan, like phenomenal. Let's bounce a couple ideas off of, can we chat about what I like? There's a team concept there. We're in this. I mean, it's very cliche to say, and it's Ben's comment. We're in this fight together. Like that means a lot of different things. It means impacting the world. It means changing lives. It also means figuring out the next best thing for wherever each of our businesses are in this moment. And I find that extremely comforting and extremely like empowering, because there are days when I look around this office and I'm like, yep, we're a party of one. Go team. And then there are days that it's like, but I have an Uncommon Live call, or I have a call set up with somebody that I've met in the group or in Coach to Coaches or whatever. No, like I got a team with me. Like Tyler's with me, Charlie's with me, Dom's with me, John's, whoever it is, like, okay, like, yeah, we got this. You don't know your role on my team, but you're on my team, like that's the empowering and really cool thing I get from, or I focus on, with our groups.
Yeah, it's so important to have those groups and to be able to rely on them, because I have those days too where I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, it's me against the world, man. It's me against the world. And I'm curious what your thought is as we get close to wrapping up here, where you want to go with your business. I mean, how clear are you with the vision on what that looks like? And have you really set down and mapped out the possibilities of where you want to be in 3-5 years? Like, just what's your game plan?
That's, the answer is yes and no, right? The answer is like, yes, there is a vision out there. It's really hard for me to articulate. And then when I look back at my life as an athlete, my life as a coach, I was very present in where I was. So when I think about being a student athlete, like people are like, where did you want to go to school? What was your dream school? I'm like, I was so focused on just being a better version of myself, being a stronger athlete, having, more polished moves, having good grades. Like if I just worked, I was confident that people would see me, that the right coaches would see me. And at the time I was like, well, that's just how I am, right? Like, isn't everybody like that? And, as my career has, gone on the trajectory, like I knew I would be a head coach. I didn't know where, I didn't know when. I went on one head coaching interview. I did not seek them out. The right spot found me. Mm-hmm. And so I now, it's more and more apparent to me that, Maren, focus where you're at, work really hard with what you're doing, believe in what you're doing. Yes, you need to have some vision, but it's not about, for me, it's not about reaching, striving, pursuing whatever the next best thing is. It's like, Maren, there are a ton. There's 351 Division I programs, not to mention Division II, Division III, Juke, all of the above. There's a lot of women's college basketball women's college basketball coaches that can use help and support. Like, just stay where your feet are, provide impact, provide service, provide guidance, provide content for those people. One day it'll keep, one day the next best thing will come. What does that look like? I see a full service company, from the search firm to the coaching to the broadcasting. I see a circle. There's a lot of fragments right now. There's a lot of parts right now. And so, yes, there's a bigger picture. Absolutely. I find myself working harder on the next, 3 weeks, 2 months, 5 months than, super far down the road.
Well, I'll tell you from my experience, and I'll share, I like to share when, I'm one of the vocal people on the calls usually, because I just feel like a lot of people get on there, don't want to say anything. I'm like, no, I'm on here, man. I'm here to talk. Like, that's what I'm here for, to help. Yeah. So I got a referral 2 weeks ago from one of my top clients. He says, hey, I've got a friend of mine. This is the one-on-one clients. So I have my group coaching platform that's getting some momentum. We had our call today, which is the Time Is Now community, which has been amazing. I love those calls. But so my one-on-one clients, I have a select number of those. And he said, I have a friend of mine that owns this construction company. He needs some help as well. I said, great. So I get on the call with him, and this call goes in a totally different direction than I ever expected. He's telling me he owns this building supply division, that they've got the rights, this patented item they're selling, that they're the only distributor for it in the US. They're trying to build this company. They're doing, I'm like, okay, well, this is not anything that I expected it to be. And so we start down this path of trying to diagnose and trying to come up with am I the right fit to help? I've got a lot of experience building companies and doing these things. And I've managed several hundred people at a time. So it's not that big of a deal. So we go through this, and today we had our third call, and we're going to put this deal together. Like, we're going to do a contract by the end of the week and have it all done. I share that with you because I never expected this type of deal to happen, Maren. So be clear on where you want to go, do the work every day, and then different opportunities are going to pop and you didn't expect. Right. Like seriously. And because I think we're on the same kind of trajectory, right. So that's why this is really not podcast. This is just you and I having a conversation right now.
I love it.
Like, because I didn't expect this, and I'm revenue driven like everybody is, but not like revenue desperate, I guess you could say. I mean, this has got a chance to like double or triple my revenue over the next 12 months. And just because I was referred to somebody else in a space who thought I would be the solution, and he didn't even really know what the problem was. He just said, "Oh, you got to call Chris; he'll fix it." So,
that from what I'm hearing, that's 100% based on your relationship. You showing up and providing value, and making that initial client of yours so comfortable, so safe that it was like everybody needs Chris. Not like, oh, I think Chris might work for you, but everybody needs him, right? Like, and that's a compliment to you doing your job at a very high level.
Well, thank you for that. And here's the little things, like it's the text messages I send every day to my one-on-one clients, right? It's the, I'm on call if you need me. Oh, you want to hire a couple new people inside your company? If you're going to coach with me, I need to interview them too. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I got it, because I can't help you solve problems if you keep hiring the wrong people. So I do go above and beyond, and Ben's the one who taught me that. Go above and beyond what you're getting paid for now, and then eventually you'll get paid way more than for what you do. So like that's what I've done, and this is just kind of proof that's going on. So hopefully, by our next Uncommon Live call, I'll have something to celebrate that this is under contract and it's going to go and make it happen. But again, share that with you, not from a point of bragging about it, but just saying, look, keep doing what you're doing, and people are going to take notice, and you're going to get that one referral. That's that next thing. Yeah. That's that next big thing.
No, I appreciate it. That, like we've said, we are smaller companies, and there are moments that we both have of questioning, of self-doubt, of panic. And so, to be supported, from you, Chris, in just the, keep going, means a lot. So much appreciated for the comments.
Oh, you're very welcome. So if anybody wants to get in your circle, see more about you, connect, what's the best way to do that?
All my social media, my website, it's all MarenWalseth.com.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
I love it. We'll have all that in the show notes. And I really appreciate you taking the time out to be part of the show today.
This was great, Chris. Like I said, like you said, we're not sure where this is going to go, but this was delightful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the One Hand at a Time podcast. Please make sure you like and share the episode. And we'll see you next time here at the One Hand at a Time podcast. Make it a great day.